Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. C.L. will be calling in the next 10 minutes, but he is currently in Austin, Texas with Freedom Works and is with some group down there. I had it, but it's gone now. Anyway, I'm sitting here in the studio with Michelle, and Michelle has my iPad, and that's why I don't know where CL is. But anyway, Michelle, how are you tonight?
Great. He is at the Public Policy Foundation in Austin, Texas, and he's with Freedom Works.
And he will be calling in a few minutes.
He will. We're going to talk to him about 5:40. Get an update. He's been traveling a great deal, and but he's excited to talk with you because of the price of oil.
Well, and there was just all kind of good news this weekend, and we're going to talk a little bit about the price of oil, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the elections. But yes,
there was a lot of good news, and that's what he said. And he takes full credit for it.
Hey, well, that's good.
Every time,
I wish he'd have gotten it done a lot quicker. But anyway,
well, we weren't on the air 8 years ago when but we're cleaning up the mess the best we can now.
Good. Well, anyway, this weekend, OPEC and Russia got together and agreed to cut back another 500,000 barrels a day. And so now between OPEC agreeing to cut 1 million barrels and Russia coming up with another 500,000, price of oil actually jumped over $3 tonight and ended up closing up a little about a dollar, settled at $53 for the day, which is good news for those of us in the industry and good news for the state of Louisiana. But as we go forward, it's going to be interesting. Of course, the naysayers are already saying, well, Russia isn't going to adhere to the cuts and OPEC won't adhere to the cuts.
So what does that mean to you? Now, you're in the oil business, correct?
Every once in a while, yes, I am.
Well, remind our audience, for those that are new listeners, and saying, who is that guy filling in for C.L. Bryant? What do you do for a living?
Well, I'm an oil and gas exploration person, I guess. My father was in the business. My grandfather was in the business. And what does that mean? It means we drill oil and gas wells around the United States. We currently have a rig running right now in West Texas, north of Lubbock. They were a little over 9,000 feet this morning, going to 10,800. But I'm one of those crazy people that believes that you can go out there and spend a lot of money and make a lot of money. And so far, it's working. Yeah.
Well, and how many years has your family been in this business?
Since the 40s.
So you've seen a lot of up and down because this is an industry that you always say is like gambling.
It isn't like gambling. It is gambling. Yeah, this is not my first rodeo. We've been through some downturns in the mid 80s. At the end of the 90s, in 08, crude oil. People forget crude went from $140 to $28 a barrel. Over a period of about 3 months. At the beginning of this year, it was $26 a barrel.
Well, before you get to this year, there was an uptick, though, a few years back when you were telling us that all these domestic drillers, that we were going to be oil independent because what has changed?
Well,
and what can we do to change that back?
People don't realize here in the U.S. we consume about 17 million barrels a day of crude oil, and we are producing now back under 9 million barrels a day. When oil was over $100 a barrel because of all the shale plays going on, we were on our way to energy independence. In fact, they were predicting that by 2020, had prices stayed above $100, we would have produced more oil in the United States than we consumed. And when OPEC realized what was going on, we talk about economics 101, good old supply and demand. But the powers that be, primarily the Saudis, decided to flood the world market with crude oil, and they have the capacity to do stuff.
Which reduces the price of oil.
Of course, when you have more than you can use, it makes the price go down, and that's exactly what they did. What they didn't realize was going to happen was that how far it would fall and how quickly it would fall, and it's had some serious implications for the royal family and for the people in Saudi Arabia as well as other members of OPEC. Venezuela is currently in bankruptcy because their economy is dependent on crude oil. And, of course, all of the turmoil in the Middle East, again, of which all of them are so dependent on crude oil for revenues to the government. So it's got some serious implications.
Well, let's talk about Exxon. So we've got a new Secretary of State. I think last week we were on the show different ideas bouncing around, and then now we've got a Secretary of State, and it's not anybody we thought it was.
No, it didn't. It came out of the blue. Tillerson, currently CEO of Exxon, and it's an interesting pick. I mean, every pick that Donald Trump has come up with, he's vetting all these folks. He's asking all the right questions, and this afternoon he was on talking about why he wanted the CEO of Exxon. He said, look, he already knows the world players. He runs the largest company in the world, 75,000 employees. He's not going to have a learning curve because he knows the players. And, of course, the left is screaming, here's a fossil fuel guy. And so they're going to jump up and down.
Well, you know what, though? I have good news for our listeners. I don't think that it matters that the left jumps up and down or gives away free tickets, free concerts. They are irrelevant, and the American people are thinking for themselves.
And that is showing itself over and over again. Again, as we talk about the Louisiana election, and I saw on the news today they have now thrown out the recount. In Pennsylvania, the federal courts rule that's not going to happen. They finally have finished the Wisconsin recount. That's
right.
And guess what? Hillary lost again.
And Donald Trump even gained more
votes. 122 votes, I believe.
And the money, what I haven't been able to come up with is the exact price tag of that. And in one of the articles that I looked at from Wisconsin, it says it. Whatever money they said was how much it was going to cost Jill Stein, she has to just pay the difference if it's over. But if it's under, she gets money back. Now, this should be a story that every liberal, every media outlet should be talking about. How could she ever take taxpayer money like that?
Well, first of all, where did she get the money from to have the recount? She didn't raise that much when she was running as a Green Party candidate for president. And so, there are those that speculate that Soros is the one funding it. And, of course, now the left has changed their tune over the recount issue, and now we need to get into the Russia hacking.
Yeah,
and,
something else to distract.
So we can distract more.
Well, when we come back, CL Bryant will be on the CL Bryant Show.
We look forward to listening to CL. This is Mike Woods. I'm sitting here with Michelle, and we will be back with you in a minute. Welcome back to the CL Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods. I have the privilege of sitting in CL's chair tonight, and we have CL on the phone calling in from Austin, Texas. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastically well, Mike, and thank you so much for being such a faithful friend.
Well, it's I enjoy it. I can never fill your seat, but I try.
Well, you do a very good job, man. I'm here in Austin, Texas, the capital, of course, everyone knows, of the great state of Texas, at the Public Policy Foundation, and we're about to have a discussion. I'm going to talk to a crowd about justice reform and what we are to look forward to in the near future. And so I'm getting ready for a nice little crowd here.
Well, I hope you have a good crowd, and for our listening audience here, I know y'all enjoy listening to CL on the radio. If you ever have a chance to see him in person, it is incredible, and so I would encourage you to do that.
Thank you so much for that, Mike. It looks like we had a pretty good weekend here as far as the runoffs were concerned. Our candidates pretty much pulled in first, and looks like we're sending Mike Johnson to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and you know, that I know you and I have both been supporters of Mike from day one, and the results, CL, were incredible. He carried all 15 parishes.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
One was 65.23% of the vote versus his opponent that got 34.77, and there was nobody, as you know, who worked harder than Mike. But it was exciting times.
Right. And what was amazing, just a month and 2 days before then, when he was accepting the nomination of the party, it won the primary, his father was standing there on stage with us. And, of course, in the process of time leading up to this runoff, his father passed away. And I just think that it is so fitting that Mike was victorious on Saturday night. It was just great.
Well, there was a great picture of you and Mike and his dad all there that night that you talked about. And, of course, Mike was emotional in his win the other night. And of course, having lost a father myself, I can't imagine going through what he went through and then 2 days later win the election and have to stand up in front of the crowd and
absolutely
and
not.
do what he did.
And so I want to wish all of you well there. And Mike, I want to thank you again. It's beginning to fill up in this little corner where I am. You might hear the voices behind me, and so I'm not going to hang on long, but I did want to, first of all, speak to you and, of course, wish all of our listeners well. Tell them they can tune in on 101.7 FM if they want to listen to the show, and be sure to download the free CL Bryant Show app onto their iPhones. And Mike, Michelle, God bless and keep both of you. Ruben, you always lay it down with that music, man. Appreciate it.
He's jamming us tonight, CL. Safe travels, and look forward to seeing you before the holidays.
God bless and keep you. Bye
Thank
now.
you, sir.
Yeah, that was it was a big deal that he was there. Mike's dad was not really in such bad shape just a month and a few days ago, and then wow. But we're grateful. The amount that he won, the percentages that he won, were historical. It's since the 80s nobody has carried the district like that.
Well, and Michelle, as you know, I was involved in the McCreary campaign early on, and when Jim won his first special election in 1988, which, by the way, Marshall Jones also was a candidate in that race and lost again.
No, what? Rewind. What was that?
In 1988.
1988.
Yes.
First time that
Congressman
Jim McCreary ran. Your dad and you were instrumental in him getting into politics.
We were heavily involved in that race. Ended up, in fact, there was speculation that my father was going to run, and there was speculation that I was going to run. And fortunately, neither one of us ran, and Jim
ran in your place.
And
who was his opponent?
Well, he was the lone Republican, and there were 9 Democrats running against him. Foster Campbell being one of them, Marshall Jones being one of them, Stan Tyner being one of them. I can't remember the rest because there were a cast.
So there was
thousands.
A lone Republican and a cast of Democrats. And look at this now. How many years later? Almost 20.
Almost 20.
About 18 years later, we had a host of Republicans
and one
lone
Democrat.
Democrat.
And the interesting thing, when Jim won that special election, he was replacing then Congressman Buddy Roemer, who had just been elected governor. And so there was a special election to fill the congressional seat. Jim was the first Republican to represent the 4th Congressional District since Reconstruction. So it had been over 100 years since we had had a Republican congressman. And of course, that happened, and we then had to run for the regular election just like 6 months later. Well,
that's okay, because Congress, and I'm sure our listeners all know this, but it's every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
That means that you are constantly running for re-election
and constantly raising money. And I was Jim's finance chairman, and so that made the effort. I mean, we never stopped raising money. But it was interesting. Marshall Jones and Foster Campbell got beat in 1988, and Marshall Jones and Foster Campbell got beat in
2016.
In 2016, once again, and we hadn't really talked about the Senate race, but the Senate race. Senator-elect John Kennedy won with 60.66% of the vote. The Democrat Foster Campbell got 39.34%. And the interesting thing, Foster only carried 8 of the 64 parishes in the state of Louisiana. He didn't win his home parish of Bossier. He didn't win Caddo.
Well, it is a very interesting race. And to all our listeners, those that didn't support Mike Johnson, I think that people are going to be very pleased. Sometimes people that you and I have met, Mike, felt like he wouldn't represent them, that he only represented people that were Christian or, very right-wing. But that's not who he is. As a matter of fact, there were a lot of business people that supported Mike Johnson. Why do you think they supported him? And I'm kind of leading up to our next guest, who is the president of the chamber.
Well, Mike has a good business record in his time in Baton Rouge, and he is a constitutional attorney, but he is also the father of 4. And he is extremely bright, and has been involved. He was involved in student government when he was at LSU. He went to law school at LSU. He was a member of my fraternity, Kappa Sig.
He was president of your fraternity,
was he?
Kappa Sig.
Well, he was.
I tease him about that relentlessly.
He was a little after me, but anyway. But Mike's a good guy and is going to do us a great job in Washington. So I look forward to having him represent the 4th Congressional District. We'll be back in a few minutes. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. Bryant with Michelle. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. Bryant, and I've got Michelle in the studio with me, helping me along today. Well, Michelle, there were all kind of interesting articles I was reading over the weekend, and I continue to be amazed by those on the left and those in the media that still don't get it. There was an interesting article, the New York Times editor said that we don't understand religion at all, and it pulled up a bunch of quotes that they had used through the past couple of months, quoting from the Bible, things that just, A, aren't in there, and B, were totally wrong and out of context.
He was talking about the election, and he said that he was like speaking on behalf of his paper, which is the New York Times, but he was also speaking on behalf of the media because they've been getting hit right now that they just didn't get it because, as you recall, they were saying that Trump wasn't going to win. There's no way. And,
98% chance he wasn't going to win.
That's right. And then he was saying that, but we misjudged it because we didn't understand the anger of Americans. But then he went and dove down a little deeper and said, we didn't understand religion and the role that it plays. And after reading his comments, I still don't think he understands what, and he said, I was brought up in New Orleans in a Catholic community, and I don't get it. And Mike, that's what we've talked about the bubble that the elitists are in. And most of them were supporting Hillary. They look at the Michigan and Ohio residents in the Rust Belt and look at them and think, well, you're ignorant. You don't drink coffee with us at Starbucks every day. I mean, you probably eat meat and eat processed food. Who are you? And, I mean, when did the Democrats stop being the party of the working class?
Well, there was a really interesting article I read about a week ago of a Democrat whose dad was a union worker, a meat packer, and he was explaining why the Democrats didn't get it and why the union vote didn't go their way. And he said that they just didn't listen to it. And you're exactly right. This elitist, and it was Saturday Night Live had a pretty good skit where they had
I posted it on our Facebook page so our listeners could see it. Go to
bubble.
Yeah.
But
it's very profound, but yet so funny.
It was funny and so true. And it's been interesting when you look, and of course now Hillary's had 14 different excuses why she didn't win.
None of them were that she was not a good candidate.
No.
Or that her message doesn't resonate with the American people.
That,
None of that.
She
it's
didn't
the
go
Russians.
to Wisconsin. Well, it's the Russians, and so we're now going to investigate.
But I think also they're trying to say it's the Chinese.
Well, it's everybody but them. And did you see Joe Biden this weekend said, look, we're not changing. It's going to be me and Chucky Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, and we're going to continue with the same effective leadership that we've had. And
I think they need to start looking at Cory Booker because there are younger people that are Democrats, and we don't need to lose sight of the fact that if the election were based on 25 to 18 to 25-year-olds voting, we would have lost. Well, they did vote, but they all voted for Hillary. So we, as Republicans, need to start to make sure that our message is trickling down to younger people. Now, we've all heard the story that when you're young and you vote Republican, you have no heart. And if you're over 30 and you vote Democrat,
you have no brain.
There you go. I didn't say this. This is what you taught me.
That's right.
But, I think there are some young millennials. We get them on the show all the time, all around the country, that understand what our policies are. But I just think it's interesting about how a billionaire businessman is going to come in and save jobs. That's what Roosevelt was doing.
Well, and look at the crowds that this billionaire has attracted. I mean, it is blue collar. It is working men and women, and he's generated excitement and enthusiasm. And
it's such a diverse group. I'm connected from working with this radio group with everybody for Trump, the Asians, the Latinos. We have the gays for Trump. All around the country, these groups have reached out to us to do interviews on our show or to have CL speak to them. It is, just because the mainstream media paints us all as, well, they're all just racist and they live in flyover country. None of that is true. But, we have to be careful. The media on all sides are trying to attack Donald Trump before he even gets in office.
Well, yeah, because they all want him to fail, and that's a lot behind the attack on the Electoral College. We've talked about on the show my time as an Electoral College delegate back in 2000. And of course, that was the Bush Gore debacle with the hanging chads in Florida. And I was reading today, one of the Electoral College delegates said he's being inundated by emails. And I've told you the story where I woke up and had 11,000 emails in my account of people asking me, because in Louisiana I didn't have to vote for Bush if I didn't want to.
But emails can't hurt anybody.
No, they
they're
can't.
Worse,
Well,
they're less than sticks and stones.
All I
okay?
did was close my email account down.
There you go.
But,
I mean, it's not like they're coming to their and I don't put it past people because of the way politics is. And you said it best about Lindsey Graham, John McCain. You know, here they're supposed to be on our team, but they're not on our team. Well, because they're feeling like you said they're going to lose power in D.C.
That's what it's all about. And we had this conversation earlier, whether it's politics or whether it's your church or whatever. Oftentimes it's not that they disagree with the ideology. It's who's in charge. And
they want to have power.
I was extremely disappointed in Senator Graham and Senator McCain both coming out now and saying, yeah, we need to look into this Russian hacking bit. You know, I mean, first of all, there have been numerous WikiLeaks and others have said it was not the Russians that released all these emails. It was an insider.
Well, we know we can't trust the media, and I don't know the words to describe what they are, but they put stories out that aren't based in fact, and other facts they just try to overlook. But the other night in Michigan, Donald Trump was speaking, and the crowd was saying, well, lock her up, lock her up. And he said, I'm president, let's not use that kind of rhetoric. But the media tries to paint it like, oh, he's backing away.
Yeah,
that is ridiculous. The president can't prosecute people. That's what the Department of Justice is for.
Well, and they haven't done a very good job, have they at all? So it's going to be interesting as we go forth. And again, I don't know how to bring mainstream media or how to bring even those in Washington. And part of that is Graham and McCain's concern. Here's somebody, you talk about the absolute consummate outsider is Donald Trump. Never held an elected position, has not spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., and he's going to come in there and he's talking about draining the swamp.
George Washington, when he became president, he was a consummate outsider. Nobody had ever been president before, and there was no Washington, D.C.
Yep. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant. We'll be back with the new incoming head of the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Tim Magner. We'll be back in a minute. Thank you.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in the studio with Michelle, and we have Dr. Tim Magner here in the studio joining us tonight. Tim is the new, what are you, the executive director of? President of the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce. I learned a long time ago it's very helpful to surround yourself with people who are very smart, and we have a gentleman tonight who's very smart.
I thought you were talking about me.
Well, yeah, you too. That's right. I forget where your doctorate's from.
That's
but,
right.
School of Hard Knocks.
It's back at the cereal box.
But,
you write off, send it in, it comes back. I'll get you one.
Okay. But anyway, Dr. Magner has his doctorate from Pepperdine. His background is information technology, and he is my computer expert. He comes to my office from time to time and chastises me about how sorry my computer equipment is and I don't have the right security and all that. But anyway, Tim has been here in the Shreveport Bossier area for the last 5 years and has jumped in with both feet. Came in and was working in information technology with the Health Science Center. Actually put his name into the pot to run the Caddo Parish School Board, and went through 2 rounds of voting.
Now, wasn't he a finalist?
He was a finalist.
So let's clarify. He almost was the superintendent.
He came within 1 vote of being the superintendent, and after the board deadlocked not once but twice, Tim graciously pulled his name from consideration and backed away from the job, and now he has jumped into the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce president's position, and is going to do some great things there. So, Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. I'm delighted to be able to be with you, Michelle.
Tell us a little bit about the Shreveport Chamber and why anyone would want to be president.
Well, I think the Shreveport Chamber is it's an organization that's been around actually. Sorry. Okay. Trying a new microphone here.
There you go.
All right. That's better. I can hear myself. The Shreveport Chamber's actually been around since 1910, so we're almost 110 years old. The building actually that we are in is original Carnegie Library built in 1921, so there's a lot of history here. And we've had the organization's been a driving force in the community for many of those years. Today we've got about 1,500 members that represent over
including me,
including you, and represent about 73,000 employees here in the region. So there's a huge potential here. I mean, one of the reasons why I was excited about the opportunity was because I believe this is a community that's unique in its gifts and its capacity. I'm not sure we have how many cities in the country of our size have both an Air Force base and a medical school. And we have an incredibly diverse economy. We have a great transportation system. We've got gaming, retail. We have oil and gas, as you know. We have a huge opportunity here. And yet, one of the interesting things that my wife told me at one point was that at the time of Katrina, Baton Rouge and Shreveport were the same size. And we're not the same size anymore. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for us if we can align the work that's out there and focus our energies. We can grow this economy in pretty substantial ways.
I know that having spent a lot of time in Baton Rouge on higher ed issues, the Chamber is down there the entire time during the legislative session, obviously lobbying on behalf of the Shreveport community. What challenges do you see that we face here in Shreveport?
Well, I think we've got a number of challenges. One's obviously the oil and gas situation, again, as you're intimately familiar with, and our ability to be able to reignite that element of the economy. I think we've also got some challenges when it comes to attention from the state. There's the north of I-10 kind of challenge that I think we face, and that's an area where I think as the Chamber, our ability to be able to work collaboratively with our delegation and to get our delegation on the right or the same page anyway with regard to some of those things. And I know we've been in Baton Rouge a lot with the Chamber. One of the things that I really want to enable us to do is to focus on those bills or those legislative entities that are going to be able to move the needle for us and make sure that we focus our efforts and attention there. And I think that for me cuts across a lot of the things I want to be able to do at the Chamber, and I want the Chamber to be able to do for the community. It's one of the things that I was so impressed with when I came here was the number of people and organizations that are focused on improving the community, making Shreveport-Bossier a better place to live, work, and play. And yet, with all that energy, there's also a lot of entropy because we have so many organizations and people who are focused. And so I think my hope is that through the Chamber we can align some of that energy. We have a number of really excellent organizations and some motivated and talented people. And if we can create some synergies among and across those organizations, I think there's a tremendous amount we can do together, both on this side of the river, but also with our folks on Bossier as well.
Well, unemployment, job growth, that is a national topic, and our show is larger than just in North Louisiana. Talk to us about what do you see as possibilities for 2017 of bringing jobs into Shreveport. Is there something that we can do to attract jobs here that we haven't been able to do before?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. There are organizations, NLEP, the North Louisiana Economic Partnership, and some others are focused on bringing businesses into the region. The work that's gone on with CSRA and the
CSRA, now they've added, I think, is it 200 or 400 new jobs?
Yep.
Right now for 2017. These are middle management and upper management IT jobs, aren't they?
They're actually all the way from call center all the way up. So it's actually a broader range than just the sort of high skill IT sector. But the opportunity, though, I think for the Chamber really is, and we have a role to play on bringing businesses into the community, but I think we also have an opportunity to help grow businesses that are already here. One of the things, my little tagline for it is sort of, if every business in our community could hire one more person, I mean, that would be thousands of jobs in our community.
And how many members did you say we had in the Chamber, business members?
We have 1,500.
So that would be 1,500 more jobs just like that. And that's a large percentage. For our listeners, we have a population of about 250,000 in Shreveport.
Right. And so if we could grow, help our businesses grow. And so that's one of the things I want to understand. As I say, we can't be all things to all people, but we ought to be something to everybody. And so part of it is understanding how we can help the large banks or the large organizations that we serve, but also how can we help support, from Capital One to the taco trucks. We have different opportunities to support those businesses and how they grow in lots of different ways. And so one of the things I want to be able to do is engage with our membership and understand what the opportunities are. We do have some support services. We have a government procurement center that helps folks be able to get ready for government procurement at the state, local, and federal levels. We've just brought back SCORE, which is our retired executive mentoring program. So if folks are trying to grow their business, we can provide some free mentoring through the Small Business Administration. We've been talking with the Small Business Administration as well. So a number of things we're trying to do to help grow business in our region.
We're sitting here with Dr. Tim Magner, and we'll bring him back after the break. This is Mike Woods sitting in with C.L. Bryant's chair. We'll be back in a minute.
Guess who just got back today? Them wild-eyed boys that had been away haven't changed, had much to say. But man, I still think them cats are crazy. They were asking if you were around, how you was, where you could be found. Told them you were living downtown. Driving all the old men.
Welcome back to the CL Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in for CL, and I've got Michelle in the studio and Dr. Tim Magner, the new president of the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce.
And Ruben is playing oldies
And
for
Ruben
you.
is playing some great music.
He plays oldies. He's like, oh, it's the senior citizen.
That's right.
Mike Woods is
It's
in the
the
house.
Golden Oldie Show.
That's right.
Thank you, Ruben. Appreciate the music, my friend. Tim, during the break, we were talking about you have a rather diverse background, family in government, and lived all over the world. Japan, where all have you lived?
I lived in Bangkok, Thailand, in Tokyo, Japan, in Lausanne, Switzerland, and I lived just outside Paris in France.
And most of
And
that
yet
was as a young child.
Shreveport is the only place that you wanted to be the president of the chamber. Can you believe that, Mike? We're
Well-
talking Switzerland, Japan, Paris, and then Shreveport, Louisiana.
Exactly.
He heard about the taco trucks.
That's right.
And we have good taco trucks.
I'm told, yes.
And we have a new good Mexican place out on the Southern Loop, too. But anyway, that's another story.
Indeed.
So you had talked during the break about the three things that you really wanted to emphasize during your time here as president. What were those three things?
So again, one of the things that we've been trying to do at the chamber, and Dr. Roseman, who you know well, has been our chairman this year, and really focused on what he calls his Connect initiative to try and link the chamber and the business community to government, to nonprofit sector, and to education. And he had a series of meetings throughout the year where they distilled the kind of what the community needed from the business community into really four things. One is economic development, and we talked a little bit about that, and I think the white space for us is really about in helping to grow local business. Again, we have a role to play in bringing business in, but it's also focusing on local business growth. The second thing is education, and really the business community, I think, has a lot of responsibility and a lot of opportunity to help impact the education system, K through 12. As you know, my wife runs the Shreveport Bossier Business Alliance for Higher Education, so through the chamber we do a lot of advocacy and support of our higher ed institutions. We also support our K-12 institutions, and it's critically important for us that we play a role in that, in helping to provide the superintendent here in Caddo, as well as our folks in Bossier, with the kind of support that they need to do the work they want to do. And then the third piece is what I call sort of brand Shreveport. It's about how can the chamber be a better cheerleader for our community. There are lots of organizations, again, out there, the Downtown Development, the folks at the Convention Tourist Bureau, and others who play more official roles in that area. But again, I think the chamber has a role to play in helping to celebrate and communicate what we have.
Now, the chamber, to explain to our audience, you'd be surprised, it's not a public organization. This is a private member organization.
Correct.
It is nationwide.
It is.
But you pay memberships for your business,
Sure. Yep.
and then you get the support of the chamber. So
Correct.
it's open to people who want to apply to be members,
Sure.
but it's not government money. This is member money.
Correct. This is the the private sector coming together to pool their resources to help support one another, to help grow business, and to help support the community. And we believe that through sort of collective action on the part of the business community, we can help provide the kind of impact that we want to see. Some of that is direct support for the community. Some of that is indirect. Some of that is we support the different initiatives both here in Baton Rouge as well as here locally to help improve our community. But it's at its core, it's really about helping business grow. We believe that if we can improve business climate in this community, we can rise the tide, and that lifts all boats. And so, as we focus on those three elements, the business development or economic development, education, and helping to share the good things that are going on in our community, we help improve the climate for everyone here, and that has an indirect effect on growing the community.
What benefits do I get as a chamber member?
It really varies. One of the I like to say, the chamber is a little bit like college. You get out of it what you put into it. There are opportunities.
I had a great time in college,
and we hope you have a great
But
time.
you
at
didn't
the
get
chamber.
much out of it.
Well, you're the only person I know who has more degrees than. So you certainly you got a lot out of your higher education experience. But very seriously, it's about participation. We have opportunities to come together for networking opportunities. We have breakfasts and lunches that occur throughout the year. We recognize and celebrate business, but we also have programs like our diplomat program that allows members to contribute and help facilitate the engagement of members across our community. We also have Leadership Shreveport, which is a great opportunity to learn about the community and is a matriculation pathway or a kind of growing up step for young executives who want to move from being at the entry level or at that mid-career and to begin to learn and create that network within the community. We also do things like ribbon cuttings, which seem, perhaps a little arcane to some folks, but it's a celebration. It really is a recognition of the membership and the investment that those folks are making in the community.
So if I'm a member of the chamber and I open a new store or a new business somewhere, then you as chamber president will come out and have a big to-do.
Great. We have folks, and this is actually one of the things our diplomats do. They come and represent the community and represent the business community. It's about celebrating one another. And I think when you look at what the membership offers, it's really an opportunity to engage like-minded individuals, to engage with other businesses, and to connect with the community in ways that are and sometimes difficult to do one-on-one. But because we can pool our resources, because we can pool our efforts, we can have an impact in a way that the voice of the business community means something to each other.
Well, you lobby as collectively in Washington, D.C. and in
We
Baton
do.
Rouge. But even at these ribbon cuttings, especially for a new business, and sometimes it's a relocation of a business, it's like free marketing because you're gathering all these people there. It's in the media. So, and we all know that if starting a new business, the first year is the hardest.
Yep.
So a nice, strong opening is always a good start to a successful business. But like you said, the resources, the benefits of membership are vast, and it's getting to talk to people like Mike Woods if you're new in the oil business, and then you have a relationship already with someone who's been successful and who's very old. So no.
Well, and actually, it's funny because I don't know, it's funny, but one of the things that I've learned is that we have an initiative called the Young Professionals Initiative, where young people 25 to 40 can come and network and learn about the community and create those social relationships that also help lubricate their business relationships. And it's been interesting because I think demographically we're kind of a barbell, right? We have our YPI group and then what I call the OPI on the other end.
That's where you are, the old professionals.
Right.
Okay.
But one of the things we're looking to do, and that again Dr. Roseman kicked off, was how do we have those generational dialogues so that we've got a way for young people to move from the Young People's Initiative into things like Leadership Shreveport, into diplomats, into opportunities to engage in the community, so that they can.
That would be the yo-yo program. The young, the old, mix it together. It's the yo-yo program.
There we go. I'm stealing that. That's good.
Okay.
Well, from one yo-yo to another. Anyway, this is Mike Woods. We're sitting in for C.L. Bryant tonight. I've got Michelle and Dr. Tim Magner. We're going to take a short break and be back and learn a little bit more about the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L., and I've got Michelle in the studio along with Dr. Tim Magner, the new president of the Shreveport Chamber. Tim, one of the things as we were talking a little bit back during the break, and you have always amazed me as someone who comes into a community not having been raised here and yet immediately gets involved. You've been involved in school board races. You were involved in a candidate for the finalist to run the school board, and graciously got out of the race because it looked like it was going to continue to deadlock, and yet have been one of Dr. Gorey's biggest supporters. I mean, you truly care about the community and are willing to put yourself out there, and people have taken some pot shots. I mean, you have been criticized for your support of school board candidates and working with Dr. Gorey and others. But and so now you find yourself talking about jumping out of the proverbial fire into the frying pan, or whichever way you jump. I mean, you're taking on a project at a time where we're struggling with. Louisiana has, I think, the third worst unemployment rate in the nation. Mm-hmm. We have high property taxes here in Caddo Parish, the highest of any parish in the state. Mm-hmm. We have certain education issues, and yet you come in with new ideas and enthusiasm. And I will tell you, as someone who has been here most of my life, that's appreciated. I mean, we need some of you outsiders to come in every once in a while and give us a little nudge and wake us up. But
well, I appreciate that, and I guess in my defense, there's no zealot like a convert. So if I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna do my best to help make it the kind of community we all want to live in.
Well, Shreveport really is a great. I mean, I raised my children here. Unfortunately, they've all moved to other parts of the country, from sea to shining sea, Hawaii and Charleston or Charlotte and Dallas, but. It is a good town and has a lot of good things to offer. I mean, we've got a lot of natural resources here. We've got some great outdoor activities, some good schools, good colleges, a great medical school. So there's a lot to offer. I think we sometimes sell ourselves short, and that may be part of just.
I like that phrase, though. There's no zealot like a convert, because that's what I am. I've been here 27 years. Raise my children here. So we got calls during the break, the questions that they have. It's always about the movie industry.
Okay.
How does the Chamber of Commerce fit in to that? And is there any hope to reignite or salvage that industry?
Well, I think, again, that part of, as I understand it, part of the growth of the movie industry here was some of it was accident and some of it was design. I think
some of it was accident. It happened because of Katrina.
Okay.
We were blessed with that. But at the state level, they had done a lot of tax reductions,
right,
so that we benefited from that.
Correct. And I think I think this is emblematic of a lot of the jobs that we are attracting to our community, the IT jobs, the movie jobs. What you find is that those jobs are portable. People can go somewhere else with them. And so, to Mike's earlier point, this is a great place to live. Some of the great IT folks that I was able to hire over at the Health Science Center were here in large part because they wanted to live here. Either they had grown up here and wanted to come back, or because they retired from the military, or they were in oil and gas, and their family said, we want to live here in Shreveport. Or in Bossier. And I think the ability for us to attract those kind of folks is in large part because of the kind of community we are. The challenge then is once we have them, how do we keep them? The nuclear mission that we now have out at Barksdale is here in large part. It was taken from another air base. A lot of that command and control structure moved from Offutt Air Force Base. So
they lost, but then we benefited.
Right.
And then trying to keep that here is something you're working on and helping with that. And that's kind of that partnership with the government, because that does depend a lot on our senators and our congressmen.
It does. And again, I think it's important for, as I was saying, that there's sort of safety in numbers when it comes to both our federal congressional delegation as well as our state legislatures. And I think one of the things that we try to do at at the chamber is to work with our elected officials to ensure that we are all on the same page with regard to what we need here.
Because it's North Louisiana at the end of the day. When you
It
go
is.
to Baton Rouge, it is being from North Louisiana, and there are many committees right now in the House and the Senate where there's no North Louisiana representation, and that is something we are working on, and I think that you can help with that.
Sure.
And we need to, Katrina was very devastating for our state in many ways, but it really gave a boost to Shreveport that we didn't have before, and then we want to maintain that. Now, this is a question everybody has. People say it's too expensive to do business in Louisiana. What do you say to that, to people that tell you that state, we can just go across the border to Texas and it's cheaper?
Well, again, I think you have to look at all of the elements. My understanding is that Shreveport and Louisiana is one of the top states to do business in, and Shreveport is one of the top communities to do business in. But those metrics shift over time. Again, I think that our focus right now should be on working with what we have to expand and grow that. There are opportunities to bring in new businesses. The chamber itself actually has Shreve Park, which is an industrial park located down near the 3132 in Southwest Shreveport, and we have land available for sale where we can actually help businesses who want to build. We've got Tire Rack is out there, Frymaster's out there, Coca-Cola's out there, the Louisiana Tech has a center out there. So again, I think there are things that we can do to attract business to our area, but it's also about helping to build business for that's already here, and give folks the opportunity to engage with our customer base in a new way, to leverage the global economy in ways that amplify the kind of opportunities that we have here. The high wage, high skilled jobs that are coming to places like CSRA are coming here in large part because of our capacity to link our higher education system with our local economy and engage the business community in an entirely different way.
Dr. Tim Magner, new president of the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce. Tim, appreciate you being here. As we go into the break, we have Tyler Bridges coming up. Tyler is a freelance writer from South Louisiana, and we're going to talk to him about the current election as well as his new book. Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. Bryant. Thanks. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant tonight. We have Michelle in the studio, and on the phone we have Tyler Bridges. Tyler is a freelance writer, writes for Politico, Washington Post, as well as The Advocate, and has a book, and I believe a book signing coming up, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But Tyler Bridges, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me about your book you wrote.
Well, it's not just me. I have a co-author, a terrific co-author, Jeremy Alford. The book just came out. It's called Long Shot, and the subtitle is A Soldier, a Senator, a Serious Sin, an Epic Louisiana Election. And Jeremy and I take readers behind the scenes and tell the unfolding story of how John Bel Edwards prevailed in last year's governor's race against the heavily favored David Vitter.
Well, you're in a great state to write on political causes because we have a
never-ending supply of data. Speaking of which, you wrote some articles about the Senate race this time as well, didn't you? Or Scott Angel's congressional race?
Yeah, my day job, I guess, is to cover politics for The Advocate. So I covered the Senate election this year. I wrote my last article yesterday on John Kennedy, a long article. And then last year I covered the governor's race for The Advocate. And then Jeremy, who my co-author on Long Shot, covers politics out of Baton Rouge and has a really insider subscription service called lapolitics.com.
Well, we have questions. People want to know about the race in Lafayette with Angel and Higgins. Do you have any inside tidbits? Did you see that coming? Was that expected? Or was that an upset?
No, it was. I think it's fair to say that Clay Higgins was the long shot of 2016. I think most people thought that Scott Anschel was going to win that race. In fact, some people thought he could win it outright in the primary. And Clay Higgins came from nowhere, and I think what he was doing was a couple of things. One is this sort of idea of maybe electing somebody who's different, a disruptor, whereas Scott Angel has been around a while, and I think there's another factor at work, and I'm sort of keenly interested in this factor because of the subject of the book that Jeremy and I wrote, which is David Vitter's role and David Vitter's key people, who in last year's governor's race, your listeners will remember that after the primary, Scott Angel did not endorse David Vitter. He didn't endorse John Bel Edwards either. He stayed neutral or stayed silent. And the information that I've gotten and other folks is that David Vitter got some payback in this year's congressional race in the Acadiana region by making sure that Scott Angel did not get elected.
Well, I found it interesting in doing some research this morning, and I did not realize that Higgins does not even live in the 3rd Congressional District. He lives in St. Landry Parish, which part of that is in the district. But talk about the consummate outsider. He is the outsider.
Yeah, he's obviously going to be a very different kind of guy heading to Congress. And Northeast Louisiana saw that a couple of years ago with Vance McAllister, and that didn't work out too well. So let's see if.
Well, I think Vance is a little bit.
To be a good guy.
Wouldn't you think that he's a little bit of a different person? I know they're both outsiders, and it's kind of the disruptive candidate. But Vance was a business owner. This guy, wasn't he in the state police? And doesn't he have a different approach to things?
Well, his claim to fame is he was the tough guy talking, the kind of the Crime Stoppers guy, and he was going.
Yeah, Vance wasn't that guy.
No, but Clay Higgins was. But it is an interesting contrast with Neil Reiser's race and McAllister, because Neil Reiser, just as Scott Angel, was the presumed favorite and didn't make it. And this race really surprised me. Scott had the most votes, but not the majority in the first primary, and then fell apart. And it is going to be interesting. Another thing, Tyler, where was Bobby Jindal in this race? Did he even? I mean, you would have thought. I mean, Angel has been Jindal's.
He must have been interviewing in Trump Towers.
I hadn't seen him go up the elevator, but
yeah, Bobby Jindal has pretty much disappeared from political life, and I'm not sure many people want to be associated with him these days.
Well, but being that, and people forget from up here, Scott Angel not only currently serving on the Public Service Commission, and that's going to be an interesting meeting as he and Foster go to the next one, and they can both lick their wounds together, but also was acting lieutenant governor for a while, was appointed to the LSU Board of Supervisors, was head of Department of Natural Resources. I mean, he was the golden boy, and I think his political career now is probably in the tank. What do you think?
Well, I think a lot of people, Mike, thought that Angel was looking to win this race and then position himself to run for governor again in 2019. You know, he mounted a very strong campaign in last year's governor's race. You know, we tell Scott Angel's story in long shot as well, and finished just a couple percentage points behind David Vitter and out of the money in the primary. And you know, it's really a big surprise that Scott Angel lost that race on Saturday, and he certainly has no shot at running for governor now.
Well, we also want to ask you this because, you know, Foster Campbell's from Bossier, which you'll be in the area tomorrow. For our listeners, he'll be at Barnes & Noble tomorrow night with his co-author, Jeremy Alford, at Barnes & Noble in Shreveport at 6 p.m. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We'll be there, Michelle, from 6 to 8 o'clock at Shreveport. Jeremy and I will be there and happy to sign copies of Long Shot.
Well, the thing that everybody wants you to tell them and confirm for them is that this is the last time Foster Campbell will run for anything. Can you guarantee that for us?
I think only Foster Campbell could guarantee that, but he is 69 years old. He ran for Congress 3 times and lost. He ran for governor once and lost, and he has now lost the Senate election. Now, maybe he runs for the Public Service Commission once again, but you know, obviously he doesn't have much of a political career left.
Well, but the Public Service Commission, I believe, only pays about $45,000 a year. It wouldn't surprise me if John Bell appoints him to some high muckety-muck position where he can bump his salary up for a couple of years and bump that state retirement and take advantage of that. But
well, Tyler, we're going to keep you on for another block because Mike Woods has been through many congressional elections up here, and it's been an interesting shift from all Democrats running to all Republicans. So we're going to talk with you about the future of the Republican Party in Louisiana when we come back from the break.
This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant. We have Tyler Bridges on the line, and he'll be back with us when we return. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. Bryant, and I've got Michelle in the studio, and we have Tyler Bridges, a young freelance author that has written a lot of political stories, has a book out on the governor's race, and prior to the break, we were talking about the 3rd Congressional District and what all happened, and some of the players and some of the behind-the-scene players who were and were not there. Tyler, we had Jeremy on last week. I believe he was on with Mike Johnson, wasn't he, Michelle?
Yes, he was.
And how did y'all get together, and how did you come up with a topic for the book?
Sure. Well, Jeremy and I know each other from Baton Rouge, from covering the legislature, and Jeremy took over for John McGinnis, who was a terrific political reporter who unfortunately left us a little early. And as I said, Jeremy and I both covered the governor's race, and he covered particularly the first part of the race, and I actually kind of joined really more for the second part of the race. And after it was over, I just felt like there was an opportunity to write a book, having written 2 books already on Louisiana politics. The first one's called The Rise of David Duke, and the second one's called Bad Bet on the Bayou, The Rise of Gambling in Louisiana and the Fall of Edwin Edwards. And this race turned out to be really epic with just all the elements, with the prostitution scandal, with there was a spy unmasked at one point, lots of twists and turns. John Bel Edwards trying to keep out any big-name Democrats from running. The Republicans, Jay Darden, Scott Angel, and David Vitter trying to make the runoff against John Bel Edwards, and David Vitter fighting for his political life. And one of the untold stories that we have in Long Shot is how 6 days before the election, or 5 days before the election, that David Vitter thought he had a last-moment chance to actually overtake John Bel Edwards because of the bombing in Paris and his effort to make John Bel Edwards and Obama look soft on terrorism and the Syrian refugees. So what Jeremy and I do, what we do in Long Shot is we take the reader behind the scenes. We put the reader in the room in the key moments and what people are saying and to really understand what happened in that race.
Well, I will be honest with you, Tyler. C.L. Bryant, the host of this show, and myself, we were very, very strong, stalwart supporters of David Vitter. So that race, it was a heartbreak that we're still getting over. And the thing that is the question to our listeners is every race is won by a Republican. And we just saw that again with this Senate race. All these statewide races, we have Republicans winning. And, John Bel is the only statewide Democrat. And again, it is a long shot. Now, this part about France and terrorism, the thing about John Bel Edwards, unlike Obama, is that he went, he was in the military. He went to West Point.
Well, but the other interesting thing, and I'd be curious to get your take on it, during John Bel came out early in this past Senate race and supported Foster Campbell, who was not a strong candidate by any stretch of the imagination, and I would have thought that Caroline Fayard from New Orleans, who of course is an ally of the Landry family, would have been the logical choice, but he didn't want to.
So why do you think that is, that he didn't endorse her, that he chose Foster Campbell over Carolyn Fayard?
I think John Bel Edwards is the guy who prizes loyalty, and during the days when not many people thought John Bel Edwards could win the race, Foster Campbell was a supporter and helped him raise him money in northwest Louisiana, and so John Bel decided to stick by him. And I guess he liked also his brand of politics in certain ways that Foster, like John Bel Edwards, is very comfortable around guns. He's pro-life, but also is liberal or to the left on certain social issues that seems to be in tune with the governor.
Well, I thought his concession speech was interesting as he ranted and raved about, but we still need a higher minimum wage and we still need this, and all of the things that he ran on and got sorely rejected. And yet it's just like the National Democratic Party continuing to support Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden. I mean, do they just not get it? What's the deal?
Well, I guess Foster Campbell is the kind of a guy who he goes down fighting, and he's going to continue to talk about the things that are important to him. But certainly the outcome in that Senate race was very different in last year's governor's race. And again, we call the book Long Shot because that's what John Bell Edwards was. Very, very few people expected that he would have a chance to become our governor.
Well, let me ask you this. In a few years, there's going to be an opportunity for him to run for re-election. What do you expect to happen? I mean, Jay Darden has committed. And that's true. Is that in the book, too, about Jay Darden being the commissioner? A Republican commissioner supporting a Democrat? Is that in your book?
Well, the book really focuses on the governor's race itself, but we tell Jay Darden's story in the book, and my co-author Jeremy begins the chapter on Jay Darden with a great story about him, how he first met Edwin Edwards, and it's got a sort of a classic Edwin Edwards story in there, anecdote in there. But we also talk about how in the runoff we have the behind the scenes look at why Jay Darden decided to endorse John Bell Edwards and cross party lines.
Well, I look forward to reading your book. I have been involved in politics for years and years. Was Jim McCurry's finance chairman the entire time that he served in Congress. In fact, one of your cohorts there with the advocate Lanny Keller actually served as Jim's press secretary in the early years, like 89 or 90. I can't remember exactly when, but.
Well, people need to come out tomorrow night, Barnes & Noble, 6 o'clock. They get to meet you, get to meet your co-author. What is your prediction, though, for governor? Who do you think is going to run against John Bell, or do you think he's going to win re-election? Or is it too early to predict that?
The whole Trump election just showed, I think it's so foolish to try and make predictions too early, or even the outcome of the Clay Higgins race. There's so many twists and turns, and again, we saw that in the governor's race last year, how John Bell Edwards, how very few people predicted that he would come out on top. And again, as I mentioned before, we take readers behind the scenes to see how it turned out that way, and so no one can predict what will happen in 2019.
Well, Tyler Bridges, we appreciate you being on the show. Look forward to getting your book and reading it. And again, Tyler and Jeremy will be at Barnes & Noble tomorrow night from 6 to 8 o'clock here in Shreveport. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant. We'll be back after the break.
I'm so nervous, I just sit and smile.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L., who is down in Austin, Texas, working with Freedom Works tonight, and I've got Michelle in the studio with me. Michelle, the Democrats just still don't understand that they lost and still won't give it up. I'm reading here that there's a congressman from Connecticut, a Democrat, Representative Jim Hines, who is coming in now a week before the vote next on the 19th, saying, please don't affirm Trump. We've talked about the challenges that a lot of the Trump Electoral College delegates are facing, being inundated by thousands and thousands of emails, and now, you remember when Trump initially said that he may not support or he may not accept the election results until he saw the final outcome, and how the Democrats and media just berated him for that.
Well, you were in the Electoral College, and I think that we need to talk to our listeners, just give a quick tutorial. Maybe students listening can do a little extra credit paperwork and turn it in tomorrow. So there's some deadlines to this. So the state, they vote.
Everything has to be certified tomorrow because the election of the Electoral College is a week from tomorrow. And so now all of a sudden,
you were talking about the votes in all 50 states.
All 50
we've had all
states.
these recounts and different things like that, but the certification happens at midnight
tomorrow night,
which is the
13th. Yeah. And so anyway, and it was interesting back during my time, in Louisiana, the Louisiana Electoral College delegates meet at the old state capitol. And as you recall,
in Baton Rouge,
as you recall, because of the outcome of the election was being challenged by the Democrats again in 2000 because they didn't.
And it was such a heated.
There were all sorts of threats of lawsuits. What we ended up doing, first of all of there were concerns that there would be attempts to stop us from actually meeting. We had state police escorts. We met at the Hilton at that time in Baton Rouge on a floor that was guarded by the state police. We went to the old state capitol because that historically is where the Electoral College had always been, but because there was a concern that by meeting there, the Constitution says you actually meet at the state capitol. We met at the old state capitol, got on a bus, and actually went to the new Capitol building and met in House Room, Legislative Room number 1 downstairs, and actually voted there so that they couldn't contend that we didn't adhere to the strict letter of the law that we.
Now, each state does it differently.
Each state does it differently.
But there's rules and regulations, and they're all trying to stick to it. And I think the big thing that we want our listeners to know is that we may have won this election a month ago, but you've got Democrats, liberals, college students, people in California trying to discourage and put a dampening on Trump's victory. Another a woman came out and said that it is just horrid that Trump is doing this victory lap. How rude and insensitive, that it's hurting people's feelings. Is this the most absurd thing you've ever heard, Mike Woods?
And yes, and of course today John Podesta came out and said that we really need to look into this Russian hacking, and because all Electoral College delegates need to be informed before they vote. Now, do you think he'd been jumping up and down had Hillary won? We wouldn't hear any of this.
Again, nobody thinks that they're credible. This is the same guy that had emails for all of us to look at that show that he's not a person who cares about the American people.
Well, and the interesting thing to me, as I said early on when WikiLeaks very first started coming out with a lot of this, they haven't disavowed that any of it's not true. I mean, they
never disavowed. And the thing that John Podesta did, and a lot of our listeners may not be on Twitter, but John Podesta's emails were out for everyone to read. And he talked about state dinners and different things. And he had like a Twitter back and forth with Julian Assange. So he basically, by doing that, he gave credibility about the food that they were eating, because he indicated that to Julian in a tweet that, well, you don't get the same kind of food in, the Ecuadorian embassy in England that we have here, and just making fun of the whole situation. That's like admitting that it was true. And like you said, they've never had to disavow it because the media has never followed up on any of that information.
Well, it goes back to the elitist attitude, and interestingly enough, one of the 10 electors that has asked for this investigation has a last name of Pelosi. It's Nancy's daughter.
And nobody's talking about that.
No, you hadn't heard that,
if that had been
have
a
you?
Bush, if the person was Donald Trump's child, no, it's ridiculous. But all of our listeners love politics, and if you don't even have to live in Louisiana to want to get that book, The Long Shot. And tomorrow night we're going to do a book giveaway. We're going to have a signed copy of the book to give away to our listeners. So tomorrow night, call in. But it's a great Christmas present for someone like yourself, if people are listening. And you can go to their website and get the book. Look, LouisianaLongshot.com. Go to LouisianaLongshot.com or show up tomorrow night at Barnes & Noble
6 to
on
8.
Erie Drive, 6 to 8.
You bet. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant. We'll be back in a minute.
Lots of people talking, few of them know. Soul of a woman was created below.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant with Michelle in the studio, and we have a caller. Kurt, are you on the line? Kurt?
Hello? Yes, hi.
Yes, how are you? Welcome to the show. What's your question?
Okay. Well, I just want to know if you've ever heard of a documentary called Frack Nation and have seen it. If you haven't, you should. And what it was done by this Irish guy, pro-fracking, pro-energy, and it was a response to the propaganda film documentary called Gasland, which single-handedly probably got fracking banned and outlawed in many countries. And it was completely false. It was done by a non-oil. It was done, Hollywood liberals.
Oh, yeah.
And counter to that was this Frack Nation. And I don't have any, I don't know this person did it, but I just saw it happenstance. My brother-in-law is in oil and gas in Texas, and every energy person should buy 100 copies and send it to their friends because it explains fracking and what it does, and it counters this horrible Gasland thing that went all sorts of awards. And it was completely false. If you watch both, there's this, you can tell with the propaganda. But this Frack Nation was done by Kickstarter. It was done, it was all done by private donation.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. And if you can get that guy on, I bet he'd talk to you. He's an Irish guy. He lives in America now. And he's fascinating. He's just pro-energy, and he uses science, and fracking generally is very safe.
Well, it's and I'll be the first to admit that our industry has done a poor job of responding. And Hollywood, well, you only have to look at New York. I mean, there's a huge boom going on right now in the Northeast, in Pennsylvania and Ohio. But when you come to the border in New York, it's not allowed. And you look at a time when the state is having serious financial issues, needs money, to think that if you step across the state line, you can drill a well and frack it, but in New York, it's not going to happen.
Yes. Well, the famous thing about he goes to Pennsylvania where the guy said he could light his tap water on fire. That's very famous.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that had been going on for years, and he was suing, of course, the gas companies for a lot of money. And he went in. Everyone around there loves. Obviously, you'd love this industry that's paying a bunch of taxes and stuff. So he refused that whole thing. And but he'd be a great guest. I bet he would talk to you. He's been on some. I think I've heard him on Hannity too. So he's not completely obscure. But of course, it got no Hollywood.
And
Hollywood.
What's the name of the movie again?
Frack Nation. One word. FRACK Nation. Frack Nation.
Okay.
Oh, you must see it.
Okay.
Well,
I'll
quite moving.
I'll get Michelle to get on that and would love to see it. We've had some instances here, even in Louisiana, long time history of oil and gas production. There was a well that was being drilled that actually the was shut down here in Caddo Parish while they were drilling because, again, someone contended that their tap water was burning, and they hadn't even reached the horizon where the natural gas was producing from, and yet the rig was shut down for a while. And again, it's a lot of it is hysteria, misinformation. It's kind of like the Chicken Little syndrome. The sky is falling, run and tell the king. But Frack Nation, Michelle, we're gonna have to.
We'll have to get that.
We're
maybe.
gonna have to get that.
Wasn't that made here locally?
What's that?
Was Frack Nation made here? Where was it made?
No, Pennsylvania. And he went all over, but he said he went to Pennsylvania at that. There was a lawsuit, and where he refuted this other guy called Gasland, which literally got fracking banned in France and many countries in Europe. Okay, and it won all sorts of awards. And the guy hadn't even lifted a shovel in his life. You just tell he's an idiot hipster from Hollywood, right? And but it focuses in the gas boom out there in Pennsylvania. And
that's right. There was. They had something like we had with the Haynesville Shale. They had something huge up there and made lots of people wealthy.
Well, so many of these environmental causes, and look what's recently happened in North Dakota with the Sioux tribe, and everybody saying we need to join with the Indians and help them fight these terrible pipeline people. The pipeline's not even going across Sioux property. I mean, They have no dog in the hunt. I mean, in the legal profession, we would say they have no standing to stop the pipeline, but yet a federal judge, thanks to our president, stepped in and shut them down.
Well, we've got another call. We appreciate it, and we'll look for that movie.
Yeah.
Kenny, are you there? We just have about 30 seconds for you to tell us what your comments were, Kenny.
That'll be all right. I'll just call back later. Y'all go ahead.
No, we're here.
No, we're here.
You wanted to tell us what you thought about Putin.
Okay.
You're on the air, Kenny, with Mike Woods.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, buddy.
I was just calling. I find it interesting that about a year ago or so, Putin was accusing the United States of interfering in Russia's election. And then you had the Arab Spring where we interfered with what was going on in the Middle East. And then just on this breakfast deal, Obama gave mostly a veiled threat to the people of Great Britain. They shouldn't be voting out.
And they didn't take it well, did they?
No. And if they want to talk about buddy, if you go back when Obama came in, he gave the Russians the serial numbers for the cruise missiles that Great Britain had gotten from the United States.
What comes around goes around. Appreciate the phone call. We're going into a break. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. Bryant. We'll be back.
And that's a ghost shot, baby.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant, and I'm here in the studio with Michelle as we wrap up tonight. Michelle, we have a great show for tomorrow night.
Yes, we do. We have Sheriff Steve Prater,
My old high school buddy and Boy Scout friend, and worked with Steve in his campaign when he very first ran for sheriff.
What
so
year
look
was
forward.
that?
It
He was a chief of police before he was
chief
sheriff.
of police. Started out, he was a jump out boy initially. He was one of the SWAT guys that jumped out and ran in and knocked doors down.
Why do I believe that?
Well,
I can see
'cause
him
he's
do
a-
that.
he's a bad
I
man.
can't see you doing that.
No, heck
but
no.
I can see
I'd
him
be
doing
running
that
the other way.
Yeah, exactly. That's
But,
and Dr. Philip Roseman.
Dr. Philip Roseman will be here, and longtime friend. So, tomorrow night, to be honest with you, it's just North Shreveport night. I mean, all of us.
That's what you wanted to
all
say.
of
This
us
was
grew up
all
in North Shreveport.
So
Yeah,
if you're in North
yeah.
Shreveport tonight, he's giving you a shout out.
There you go.
If you're in another state, you're like, what in
Yeah.
the world is North Shreveport?
We'll talk about it tomorrow night.
No, I think we'll talk about other stuff. I mean, Dr. Roseman is Blueprint, Louisiana, Committee of 100 on the state level. He has a charter school that he founded. He's a cardiologist and the CEO of the Shreveport Chamber.
Yep. Philip's a good guy, been involved in a lot of things, higher ed. He was on Shreveport Bossier Business Alliance member for years, and it's just done a lot of good things.
Well, it's about business for us. I mean, the reason we keep having these chamber members, business owners, is because we want to talk about economic growth and development and how can we help businesses in Louisiana, Texas, North Carolina. We have listeners all over the country. So we know the voters sent Trump to D.C. to work on this very thing.
And I think we now have, Tim talked a little bit about the importance of a cohesive delegation, both in Baton Rouge and in Washington. I was thrilled to see Congressman Abraham at Mike Johnson's event the other night, strongly supporting Mike and excited about Mike coming to Washington.
Well, and Congressman Abraham is a doctor.
Yes.
We have a lot of input in Louisiana to the repeal and replacement of Obamacare. Our Senator Cassidy in 2012, when Mitt Romney was running for president, he was looking for an alternative solution to Obamacare, and Cassidy helped write that. So we are going to be very strategic and significant in that repeal. So if you're listening in North Carolina, then listen in, because we're going to talk about some of that.
And we've got Congressman Scalise and the power in the House, and it's going to be interesting to see.
Congressman Scalise is the majority whip.
Majority whip, and it's going to be interesting as President-elect Trump comes into power. He's not beholden to the power brokers that have run things in Washington. So I mean, he's talking about draining the swamp, and so I think there's going to be some exciting times for Mike Johnson and some of the other elected officials. Well, this is Mike Woods. I've enjoyed sitting in tonight. As always, I appreciate the men and women in the armed forces that are serving our country. I appreciate the men and women that serve and the police and fire. And as we come into the holidays, they'll be working when we're all spending time with our family. Thanks to the listening audience. Thanks to C.L. Bryant for allowing me here tonight. I look forward to being here tomorrow night. This is Mike Woods. Good night.
We'll stand by your side and the